is going on? Sorry. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will be doing our second power rankings after the preseason. So after it, even though it's the first week, not a lot, but some movement in this week that we have to talk about. So starting out with number 30, which is going to be the Thunder. If I could find them, there they are. Okay, so the Thunder obviously are just, the worst team in the NFL. In the NBA, sorry. There's just really a main reason for this. This team doesn't really have an identity. This team doesn't really have a, big player. Gillis Alexander's fine, but, this team doesn't have any identity. You look at the Magic and the Pistons and the Rockets. You look at some of those teams, they have identities. They have, Jalen Green and Suggs and Cade Cunningham. So the Thunder just don't have that. That's why they're the only trash tier of, starting out this season. So the Thunder. Now moving on to the bad tier. Starting out with the number 29, Orlando Magic, if I could find them. There they are. Look at Orlando. Jumping up spot. They're 0-2. And, Orlando, they're just, I wouldn't say they're trash just because they have Jalen Suggs. They have an identity. They're trying to build around him. But, this is just a bad team. Without Jalen Suggs, this is the same team as last year. A trash team. And then moving into Detroit, I like Detroit more than the Magic, barely, in this tier, just because Cade Cunningham is much better than Jalen Suggs, in my opinion. So anyway, Pistons are going to be dropping down a spot. But Detroit, I do think that they are just a bad team, and Cade Cunningham, the same for the Magic. Cade Cunningham is just carrying this team. Rockets, same deal. This Rockets has a better roster in general than these two other teams. Plus Green, I think, puts them over the top. I think Cade Cunningham is better than Green, but Green overall with that roster is better to start out this year. So Rockets jumping up 2 spots there. Moving on to the Cavaliers, also jumping up 2 spots and rounding out this bad tier. The Cavaliers, I thought maybe were in the trash tier, but they just have a decent roster with Colin Sexton. This is the same old team we've seen for a while. They're just waiting for that high pick so that they can get a big player. All right, moving on to the next tier where we're going in the hunt. Now, obviously in the hunt is just teams in the hunt for the postseason. And I'm going to start up with the New Orleans Pelicans. Rough start for this team, as it seems like every year with Zion Williamson's absent, 0-3, dropping down 5 spots. I don't know if I mentioned that, but definitely the Pelicans just not looking good right now for this team. Brandon Ingram's pretty solid, but, other than that, besides Zion Williamson, this team is garbage. So, Pelicans staying at number 25 right there. Then jumping up a spot just because the Pelicans dropped down. Where are they? Raptors. Yeah, just because the Pelicans lost one, but just a 1-2 start to this week. And, this is the Raptors team that I thought coming into the year. They're just a competitive team, well coached. Do I think that they're going to make the play-in tournament? No, but if you're well coached enough, you'll be in that contention no matter what. Then moving on to number 23, also jumping up a spot. Even though an impressive week at 2-0 start, not against the best teams, but Timberwolves, again, kind of like the Timberwolves, they definitely have the talent, but the culture for Timberwolves is just horrible. This team is, garbage. Let's be honest. The culture of this team is garbage. The talent's there, But they got to just form an identity with this roster, or else, it's going to suck for this team. And then jumping up 2 spots will be the Spurs. The Spurs, 1 and 2 start. Again, kind of like the Raptors, but just a better version. Well coached, decent roster. And in that position, they're going to be a play-in tournament team. They're going to be in the hunt no matter what. I don't think they slide into the playoffs, though. And then moving on to number 21, which is going to be the Indiana Pacers, dropping out of that play-in tier. Well, I don't know if I had them last year, but anyway, staying at that same spot, 1 and 2, just another one of those form where, Pacers, it seems like they're going to be in contention every year. It's just time for the Pacers to blow it up, though. So, yeah, Pacers at number 21. All right, moving on to the play-in tournament tier. You probably already know what this is. It's just the play-in tournament teams. And starting out with the New York Knicks. Right here, dropping. Oh, wait, no. Sorry, I read that wrong. That would have been bad for me to put the Knicks. The Kings drop it down a spot at 1 and 2. Not really drop it down a spot. That they're they had a very good week. It's just because one team, jumped up spots. So, the Kings, they played solid against a very tough start to this year. So the Kings at 1 and 2 at number 20. Okay, moving on to number 19, the Wizards. That's the team that passed them up. Washington, I think the trade is just what the Wizards needed, at least from the start of the year. Bradley Beal can do enough on the scoring board, plus to get some defense on this team. You look at the roster, it's solid with Montrezl Harrell now. I think the Wizards are just ultimately going to be a play-in tournament team by the end of the year with this new roster. And I think that, letting go of Russell Westbrook was the best thing to happen for this Wizards team, especially for their chances to make the play-in tournament. All right, moving on to number 17. I didn't think I would be saying this at the beginning of the year, but the Clippers. Horrible start. It's only 2 games, but 0-2, but not really competitive in this 2 games. This is where Kawhi comes in. You have to have Kawhi in these type of games, or else you're just going to be bad. Being number 18 for the Clippers right there. Not a good start to the year, and I don't expect it to get any better. Okay, so moving on to number 17. Staying at the same spot will be the Celtics. There you go. You look at Boston, a 1 and 2 start. Difficult schedule. They barely lost in overtime against the Knicks, but I think the Celtics are going to be able to bounce back from this. I think that I already know what they are. That's a play-in tournament team. Maybe could be a team that's, number 6 in the East, but not really contenders. That's just where my opinions are as the Celtics. And then moving on to number 16, jumping up a couple spots, the Hornets. Jump it up 2 just to clarify. Very impressive start to the year, 3-0. They've beaten the Nets, beaten some other big teams. But the Hornets, LaMelo Ball playing as good as he ever has. This roster's decent, and that's really all that you need to be a play-in tournament team, especially in the Eastern Conference. Just be a solid basketball team. And then moving on to number 15 is going to be the Miami Heat, jumping up a spot as well at 1 and 1. They're really just jumping up a spot, mainly due to the Clippers dropping down 5. So that's that input on there. You look at the Heat. Again, they're just like the Celtics. They're just what I knew. A 7 seed in the play-in tournament, most likely could slide into that 6 seed, but not high expectations for this team. All right, and then just like last week, how we saw a playoff team go on the board before a play-in tournament team. That's going to be the Knicks. the Knicks, 2-1. The reason why they're at number 14 and in that play-in tournament tier is because in the East they're the sixth best team, but in general they're the 14th best team, which leaves two Western Conference teams to go through. But anyway, the Knicks, they played some solid start. What I expected at 2-1. That's why they're staying at the same spot. And yeah, that's really all my opinion on the Knicks. Okay, moving on to number 13, which is going to be the Portland Trailblazers. Which it kind of pains me to put this team as I'm predicting them to be an 8 seed. But, the Western Conference is stacked past that, once you get into that 8 seed area. At 1-1, dropping down a couple spots, obviously. That's really just because of some other teams that have jumped them. I think that this is a team that I already know coming into the year. Damian Lillard going to always be competitive and going to always be a playoff team, it seems like. All right, moving on to number 12, the Memphis Grizzlies. Jumping up with 3 spots at 2-1, a heartbreaking loss to the Lakers. But, you look at the Memphis, they're playing like a very solid basketball team. Ja Morant is clicking this team. This young team, every year they're just going to get better, and I think they finished for the 7th seed, at least, into the play-in tournament. So, yeah, let's move on to the next tier up in the playoff tier. Obviously, we already have the Knicks, but that was round out the play-in tournament tier. So the Lakers are going to be number 11, dropping down 6 spots. Yes, so I had the Lakers in the contender tier last week, and I obviously had my doubts entering to there that Russell Westbrook, AD, and LeBron James, can they all mesh? Obviously, to start at the year, that hasn't happened. And, even if you have LeBron as your main guy, I don't know if this team's going to be contenders by the end of the year. So, right now, in my opinion, the Lakers not very good at number 6. And honestly, yeah, I really believe that the Wizards won that trade between the two teams. Anyway, moving on to the Sixers, dropping down a spot here just really because a team is hopping them. But the Sixers, you look at this team at 2-1. Again, like a lot of these teams, what I expected for the start to come, solid playoff team, but not contenders. Anyway, moving on to number 9, the Hawks at 1-1, beating out the Sixers for that, I think, the 4 seed right there. Look at the Hawks, Trae Young getting the job done. They're 1-1. But again, just really what I thought about the Hawks enter to the year as they dropped down a spot. All right, moving on to 8, the Mavericks. This is like these 3 teams, the same thing for them. I knew what they are coming to the year. They're going to be very competitive playoff teams, but I don't see them winning the championship. All right, moving on to 7. Now we get some movement here with the Warriors jumping up 5 spots. What a start to the year, 3-0. With Steph Curry. A lot of you probably wondering why the Warriors aren't in the contender tier. I'm not ready to say this team's a contender. Obviously, Steph Curry, can he lead this team to be insane in the postseason? What? Well, yes, he can, but Klay Thompson coming back, if he is the same Klay that we know, that's going to be a contender team. If he isn't, this is a team that's in the playoffs. Steph Curry can't carry this team. We're very rugged West to the championship, but very solid start, and they're tipping up to that contender tier. I just need to see a few more weeks, potentially, to see them up there. And then another team jumping up, the Bulls, jumping up by 4, another 3-0 start. I'm starting to see, I thought that to start at the year, the Bulls wouldn't play very well. I think that they would still get some time getting used to it, that, those insane 4 players. But obviously they proved me wrong. Starting at 3-0, obviously, it's just the start. But the Bulls, what I've seen, this is a number 6 team, and potentially could be a contender team by the end of this year. I mean, that 4 players is just insane. They're not really superstars, but they're very close, and that's basically like having 2 superstars on your roster. But yeah, the Bulls at number 6. Okay, moving on to the contender tier. Obviously, this is what it sounds like, contenders. We have 5 teams remaining, and let's start out with the Suns. At 1 and 2, a disappointing start for the Suns, but they started out like this last year. But I think this team will bounce back. And then number 4, well, yeah, I want to actually stay in the Suns topic here for a little bit more. I think the Suns, never mind, I said really everything I had to say about the Suns. They'll be able to bounce back. I think this is definitely still a contender team. All right, moving on to number 4, the Nuggets, 2-1. Denver, man, this team. I had them at number 6, jumping up a couple spots this week. But Jamal Murray as he came back, played pretty darn good. And this is a team that is a contender in the rugged Western Conference. Jokic, the MVP from last year, just an insane group that you just cannot deny the facts of this team. Then number 3, the Brooklyn Nets, dropping down 2 spots at 1 and 2. The Nets, I mean, tough team to put at this point, but this is a team. They got KD, Kyrie Irving, and KD and James Harden, and a solid roster in between. So still a team that's contenders. The difference between this, I would have the Lakers at this spot if they didn't have Russell Westbrook on the roster, if that makes sense. I just think that was a horrible pickup for them. But yeah, the Nets at number 3. And then the Bucks jumping up a spot just because the Nets dropped down. Then the 1 seed. So let's talk about the Bucks at number 2. 2-1 start, got a loss, but very impressive win against the Nets in the day 1 of the NBA. And Giannis looking as good as ever with that new team. Then obviously the 1 seed, the Jazz, taking care of business this week at 2-0, looking solid, and I think they're the number 1 team in the NBA. So anyway, guys, thank you all for watching my video today. Hopefully you all enjoyed the content. Comment down below your power rankings and like the video and subscribe. It really helps me out. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Peace out.